Amazing. So I'm here with Eduardo, and we're going to talk about the absolutely incredible Fifth Fire project and how it connects with what I'm working on and the up and coming Sacred Leadership Program. Super excited.
That's good. So let me walk you through this one pager. Let it just load. Otherwise, it's going to take forever. So, okay, share screen now. So it's just a one-page presentation. Okay, so we'll walk through the different parts of it. But first of all, my initiative, the company that I started is called Blue Dot Project. And Blue Dot Project is really a platform for planetary regeneration. That's how I'm conceiving it. It has come down to building a platform. Um, and I don't necessarily mean on the technology sense of the use of the word, but as a set of conditions for something to flourish, right? Like the soil for the future of humanity. Like we need to bring together wisdom, capital, and intention, right? So we come at it from the capital side of things, figuring out methods to bring money into regeneration. But it has really become evident after years at it that it only matters, but we do only matters if it truly aligns with the future of humanity. So if it truly can move the needle on reorienting humanity towards harmony with the earth. And the one thing, a couple of things that we can actually invest in that will be moving us in that direction is ancestral indigenous wisdom and community. Communities of stewards, community of people that are conscious of the connectedness with one another and with the earth and with the cosmos, right? So this, at the core, we need to sort of address the core of humanity. And it sounds big, and it is, but also we're conscious of not being overambitious of, hey, we're not boiling the ocean. Basically, we're planting a seed of 1,000-year project. And the seed is a civilization that lives in harmony, that understands connectedness, kinship. The first flagship project is called the Fifth Fire, and it's about igniting a civilization in sacred reciprocity. And we acknowledge that this project must unite different ways of knowing. We have indigenous and global conscious leadership. Imagine if these two powers come together truly in a meaningful, permanent conversation and co-creation process. What we can do, bringing the best of both worlds, is very significant, and very meaningful and transcendental. And so the Fifth Fire is a container for those conversations to happen, a container for creativity to be oriented by connectedness. So the Fifth Fire is born in the Sierra Nevada of Conavindua in Colombia. It's a bios. Of course, there are several physical characteristics that make it very unique. It's a biosphere reserved by UNESCO. It's a World Heritage Site. It's the most irreplaceable ecosystem on the planet. But it's also home for these four tribes, Kogi, Wiwa, Arawak, and Kwamo. And they particularly have the mandate to transmit the message to the world, the message of Mother Earth. And so they have an open invitation for anybody who comes to Sierra to get familiar with what the message is, with the law of origin, with what our role as humans is on Earth and how we are here to care for other species and for other beings, living and non-living, or, well, everything is living. So animated or inanimated. And so it's amazing because they already have the mandate. We're not telling them, hey, you have been a closed community for millennia, but we need your knowledge. No, they're actually open and say, hey, come and learn. Come and let us tell you how we have done it, what needs to be done, what does it mean to do a pagamento, what are the energetic ley lines, what is a sacred site, why is it important, how to read a landscape, how to build a biological corridor again, why is it important for the monkey and for the bird, and so they're very open to that and say, okay, well, we cannot be depending on some mammals and some representatives of the tribe just going around and spreading the word in conferences with 1 hour long interactions, maybe 2-3 hours. Maximum is a retreat, with them of a couple of days. We say we need more than that. We need a permanent platform where we get to co-create together what the future looks like. And so what's the fifth fire is in the words of the Kogi governor, it's a laboratory for humanity. So the Mamos have widely approved the fifth fire on the Kogi side and the Arawak side. Working on the Wiwa now, and the Kankwamo don't have Mamos. They don't have spiritual leaders. They have lost it. So the keepers of the knowledge of the Kankwamo are the Kogi. So we can say that we have 3 of the 4 from the spiritual side, and Wiwa are very aligned. I already had strong collaborations and conversations with them about the importance of this. So the laboratory for humanity will have some initial key functions. At the core, you have a dialogue space for basically sacred dialogues. This is where we get to discuss the spirit of intentions, right? Because once you put a mission out, a purpose of a company, if it's not aligned with the law of origin, then that activity will be misguided. And because of the law of attraction, it will be successful if it's, action follows that intention. But if it's not aligned, then we get to, again, sort of the world we live in that has been extremely successful at applying principles of thought and the law of attraction, all these things to manifest what we see today. Everything started in imagination. Everything started as a thought. Probably those thoughts were not aligned to the law of origin to begin with, right? That we lost it somewhere. So let's reconnect there. And that's the center of the fifth fire is the center for dialogues to distill initiatives, activities, actions that are aligned. In order to enter that circle of sacred dialogues, and I see startup entrepreneurs, politicians, leaders of enterprise, NGO leaders, people of, of good heart in general, leaders capable of changing things coming into dialogue. But in order to enter the dialogue, we have to consciously be aware of our vibrational level and elevate it. And that's where the harmonization center and healing center comes around. So I call it harmonization center more than healing. I still use a healing because something that is easy to relate to. But harmonization is really the thing. It's like, how do we build something where with the mix of the proper use of ancestral medicine, the Wiwa are the keepers of the ancestral medicine and no knowledge of the plants of the Sierra, and then modern knowledge of vibrational frequencies and methods to elevate it, and then other ways of knowing from the Tibet and other cultures to basically receive the hug from God and elevate our vibrations. And now, from a more elevated state, enter the sacred dialogues. So at the core, there's these 2 things. Once as ideas get distilled, and say, okay, yeah, with these modifications, it could actually be aligned, and let's move forward with that. But then there's all the other mechanical things that we know really well how to do. This is the research, the ventures incubator, the funding facilities, monitoring MRVs for impact, community development. This is how to build new communities that actually embody these principles education and arts as a method of inspiring and communication with the outer world. There's an agriculture hub that the indigenous have requested that must be part of the fifth fire. They said, well, we need to promote food sovereignty, and we need to. They're open actually to bringing together also modern soil technology with their ancestral knowledge and actually make things more consistent, faster, better, without losing the spirit. Living quarters. I mean, I feel that a few people must live permanently there to hold and care for this eternal fire. And then a cultural center is something that the Mamos have requested also. So we need a place and resources necessary to reignite the preparation of Mamos again, because it's being lost. I mean, very rarely a new Mamo gets formed now, gets educated. So we need a place that has been, they selected a place that is cosmically aligned in the Sierra to have this cultural intergalactic center. Is actually their literal words. When they come to me with the coordinates, and like, we want the intergalactic center here. I'm like, what? It's actually a place to prepare Mamos. Great. And so we, in the consulta, the Arawak and the Kogi perform consultas of where they should approve, and if they approve, where should be the hub. Separately, okay, they didn't know about each other's consultas, and they both came back selecting pretty much the same space. The Arawak said Vira Vira, which is a 2,000 hectare land, no, 1,000 hectare land, and there's a Donama, where this stone is. This is an intergalactic telecommunication center, according to their explanation. So we can send messages to the universe and to the rest of the earth from this place. And it dates from the time that the four tribes were one, the Tejuna people, prior to the Spaniards coming in here 1,000 years ago. So it's a very significant culturally place. And the Kogi said, this for what we want to do, for what your intention is, Donama must be the heart of the fifth fire. And so they selected that, and it's right next to Vira Vira. So we have a very interesting complex there. Probably structures will be in Vira Vira, and Donama will be more of a conservation site and leave it for very sacred ceremonies in that place and stuff. And then we have in the council the chair of architecture at Yale. And she's an interesting person because she's like a mamo. She's like an elder for the Chinese Tibetan culture. She's very knowledgeable, and she, just like the mamos, know how to read the land, except that she can actually translate that into modern drawings and structures. She sees building as an act of healing. So the actual construction is not called construction; it's called activation. I put development because this is what we know, but really it's an activation of a structure that will accelerate and propel the healing of the land. So this is just an initial budget, but we'll need to buy the land and so do some pre-development and then the actual development of main first structures. I'll jump to the right here. Because in the end, I mean, here's what we play. We know how to make things financially self-sustaining. I thought about two main avenues here. One is the Sacred Innovation Studio, which parallels a lot with your venture family, because it's actually ergodic. But we need to build here, and we need to invest in terms of systems and invest in the harmonization of the frequencies of the founders so that everything is aligned. And all of this emanates from the sacred dialogue with the elders, right? So the point is to support startups, co-ops, NGOs, whatever, in sacred reciprocity with the earth. And then the second initiative is like a private equity move. Like these are technologies, we're going to invest in technology and companies or form companies that already have experience doing this and they have technologies that are proven. For example, there's some bacteriology treatment of toxic residues from the mining companies, proven all over the planet. They can come here and create a new company, do some wastewater treatment, solid waste recycling. There's agroforestry investments, renewable energy, and conscious tourism. Those are everything. This is all well-known technology. It's already proven working, ready to receive private equity type of capital. And the idea of the Sierra Nevada Region Transformations Fund is to launch individual independent SPVs with a specialty where investors familiar with that activity can come with more comfort rather than saying, hey, this is, now this whole thing is an ergodic system as well. But that's the idea. There's a free trade zone initiative also there to promote market access and distribution and processing of indigenous and consciously created products. So that's in a single page what the idea is of the fifth fire. Right now, here at the bottom, I have the collaboration with Aguila Condor Foundation, which are actively helping us socialize these with family offices in Europe. They have a venture fund in Switzerland as well. And they're committed to the preservation of indigenous wisdom. And then the Kogi governor delegated Juan Gil to be the representative for Fifth Fire Matters, and Rogelio Torres is himself Cabildo, a governor of the Arawak people for one of the resguardos. And then we have myself as the sort of like leader of the alliance. Each one of us have a lot of council members, you know, that are meant to be a crucial component, a crucial part of this whole puzzle. So that's the idea.
Beautiful, amazing. Thank you for sharing. So I think I would like to talk to the part where I feel I can add something that's not here. And that's the idea around the innovation studio. So where my thinking is at is that the way that the current entrepreneurship ecosystem is structured, it's really highly biased towards a certain kind of personality. In many ways, you know, they say doing a startup, it's like chewing glass. I think you need to have the level of craziness of running naked into a burning house, really, to start a startup, because it's a hostile environment and it's very, very tough. And really, ideally, you should be privileged and not have to pay for your life for the next 3 to 5 years, so you don't have that pressure, right? So, and who is good at running naked into burning houses? Young men with too much testosterone, which is great because sometimes society needs people to run into burning houses. But I think we need to reorganize the whole endeavor of entrepreneurship so that it's open to many more people with many different with many different personality types. That enables a more feminine, a more mature, all other many different. I fundamentally believe that entrepreneurship, building ventures, is a creative endeavor, and thus it's something that most people would enjoy or could participate in if they were given the circumstances which enabled them and didn't require them to effectively put their life or livelihood on the line, running naked into a burning building. So also, I'm really thinking of what do I imagine a regenerative economy and a regenerative entrepreneurial system to be like? And I imagine it to be much more supportive, right? Much more like the forest where you feel you are part of a maybe somewhat competitive, but overall a nurturing environment. Right now, it really feels if you're doing a startup, you're a tree planted in the middle of the desert and you're alone and you have to fight for it and it's tough. You're not planted in the shade of your mother tree and growing in a peaceful way. So I think there is, and you have it in some ways, but I think it could be put into the plan in a more explicit way. One is just to building the ecosystem, the regenerative entrepreneurial ecosystem, which means creating more connection between ventures, encouraging people to talk to each other, to collaborate. I think fundamentally, a key part of our endeavor to build this regenerative society is to find and create a richer ecosystem of collaboration between organizations. Right now, fundamentally, collaboration is I buy your stuff or you buy my stuff, right? That's the capitalist way, which is a very poor way of, I mean, it's good, but it's very limited way of interacting, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's clear we need more mutual support, more dialogue, more all kinds of things which I can't imagine, right? And that's kind of general big picture. And within that, what I see as for sure an opportunity is this idea of rather than building businesses individually or in cohorts where you have an incubator and then the incubator is done and everybody goes on. And if they build relationships, lucky. If not, you're back on your own, right? Instead, to build families, a family being a unit which is intended for the long term. Of course, not everybody stays in a family forever. Life changes. But in general, the intention is it's for the long term. And based on strong values and a deeper interrelationship. In business terms, I see this as going out to raise together as a portfolio. So rather than going to investors, I'm a company, I'm doing this stuff, we're a portfolio. Here's these 5 companies. We share some technologies, maybe in different combinations, right? We share these customers. We can go to market as a group instead of individually, and thus share our effort. And even though we're separate companies, together we have enough synergies, that horrible corporate word, but a good one, but it's been abused. But we have enough synergies that we'll be more resilient, ergodic, and all of those things as a group. So then this means that because they share values, people know each other. And to me, it's not just the leaders having a meeting once a week, it's at all levels, right? The janitors talk to each other, the software developers or the technical people, the HR people, everybody's talking to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this means that you're much more resilient because let's say 1 month or 1 quarter, one company is doing really well and they're really desperate, they need help for staff, they got a project, right? Rather than having to go out and hire, somebody else in the family is having a slow quarter and saying, oh yeah, please, if you could use my project manager and my web designer and then that would be great, because then I don't have to pay them that month or I pay them less, right? You can dynamically shift resources. In the modern world, there's more and more fractional roles, right? For most companies, for example, unless you're a financial company, you're not going to have a full-time CFO, right? It doesn't make sense for most startups. But it would be good to have a CFO. So if you have 5 companies or 10 companies in the family, then you can have a fractional CFO that manages all of those companies, and that's close to a full-time thing. And that also builds more connection, right? And sharing of best practices, sharing of learnings. So I have this idea that just as humans alone, we are weak, fragile, and actually kind of stupid. And it's in families and tribes and groups that we become stronger and more resilient. So also businesses, if we build them in families rather than individually, they will be stronger. It's just one idea. There could be others, but I think we need to really experiment with higher level order structures of how we collaborate and build this regenerative business ecosystem. Because if we're just going to be building companies and throwing them out naked into the fire, like the current startup world is, that's really tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Well, the model, as it's known, it's close to what a venture studio is. Venture studio is that exactly. Like it has some connotations,
Venture
right?
studio, so it's exactly, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a huge inspiration, but venture studio is more top down. So
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have the benefits of a venture studio, but bottom up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're both useful models, it's just different starting points. With a venture family, we start with already leaders and ideas and projects that exist. But yes, it's very much connected with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what's your approach to get over the hump of traction?
Which traction?
Traction in the model. I mean, right now is an idea, but how do you get an MVP out of a venture family?
So it's about finding the right group of organizations and people where there
Mm-hmm.
is uh, enough of a alignment in business plans and models that it makes sense for them to work together, and that there is human alignment. And I think the key thing linking it is fundraising together. Most people hate fundraising, or at least it's not their biggest joy. So going out and saying we will go out together and we will support each other, I think is going to be a key foundation. So the way to get over the hump, I mean, is to look at a bigger group and filter down of who are the organizations that can work and are interested in work together, and slowly, piece by piece, add the scaffolding of interrelation. And
Yeah, but I mean,
in
there's a thesis. There's a thesis that unites them to begin with.
yes,
Is there? And who
there
puts
needs to
together
be,
that
for
thesis?
sure, there needs to be, I think, a higher level thesis, which I mean, you present, right? The building regenerative society. And there needs to be underneath that a thesis of within our product space, right? What is the group of products that we see that how we want to contribute to that higher purpose? So I guess you could say the higher purpose, which is the fifth fire and the regenerative thing, and within that, a vision of in a particular business area,
Mm-hmm.
what is the transformation that we want to see and how, what are we building to contribute to that?
I'd love to brainstorm on this because I've thought about, always when I bring this idea up, which is like very similar to what you're saying, I just haven't developed it as much as you have. Um, but always the investors and venture studios are gravitating towards the rat race, which is that each company on their own. Like, so the first thing to do, I mean, we have a couple of ways of approaching this. If it's bottom up, if it's bottoms up, then it starts with community of founders. And then the second view or the second lens through which it can be seen is the bioregional lens, right? Why? Because there's natural synergies within the bioregion. And then expanding also the concept from, I mean, the startup is often associated with, when we use the word venture or startup, it often associated with technology. When you say venture funded or venture fundable, it usually means that it has the potential to become a unicorn. Um, and it's very difficult to do unicorns that are aligned with the law of origin because unicorns seek growth uncontrollably
So
and are hoping to the hockey stick. And
that's that's where I think, right, the fifth fire in the center comes in, where what I jokingly say, and it's also still hypothetical or it's a theory. What I say is, I don't want the investors' money. I want their soul,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll give me their money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm building a venture family and coming into union together is also, it's a developmental journey, but it's also a spiritual journey. And similarly, I think bringing the investors, right? Just putting in investors that are looking at the numbers, that's not the path, right? There is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
investors that are looking for meaningful ways to understand, that are looking for the path. So that's where I think the power of the fifth fire is, right? Of having a center where we're bringing investors along on a journey. Because if they're not along on
Mm-hmm.
the journey, then I'm not gonna, like, how are you gonna compete against the latest crap meme coin or stupid AI startup, right?
Yeah. But this can be expanded to like in building a community, you need economic. Like the best example of ergodicity and family that I have seen applied to humans is actually in Botswana. But it's this group of families that basically just make it together. They live, in a little village. Children are born into a huge family with 20 fathers and 20 mothers.
The
And there's
culture where
no,
where the
yeah,
village takes care of the children, and there is no parenthood, or paternity is not a concern, not a conversation.
it's not a thing. Yeah, I mean, what better ergodic system? I mean, there's no fallout. There's no one person that will fall down and then be in trouble because if that happens to that person, well, I mean, he has all the support from the family to get back on his feet, you know? If one father dies, well, the children have 19 other fathers, you know? So how can we bring that to our world? And
I
what I've been
mean,
gravitating towards is like, oh my God, it's very difficult to do anything outside a community. It's very difficult. This is very difficult. We have to build in community. So how does the community get shaped first? And then second, how does it self-organize into these pockets of families that share resources, that share talents, gifts, but that fundamentally are taking care of each other?
so having been around the Let's Build a Village space for 12 years or something, and thinking about building community and such, uh, two key ideas that I think I've settled on. First of all, building community is not hard, but it requires resource, requires somebody to steadily make connections, make things happen, da da da. So there needs to be capability to resource somebody to put their effort and love and time into doing the community building. That's why in a venture family, I imagine that when the portfolio raise happens, some percentage of the raise is devoted to family services, to building that connection and ongoing things. So that all will automatically resource that thing. And then the other thing is, I think a big reason, which are the communities which succeed on a reliable, regular basis? Faith-based ones. If you have a shared God or a shared guru, it's almost easy to build community. For a lot of us that don't subscribe to traditional beliefs, and I am in envy and admiration those that are able, that have a religion and that they have that framework. For those of us who don't, we're kind of stuck, or for those of us who want to build community across different faiths, that's where we it becomes challenging. I personally believe that uniting in a shared love for the earth is going to be make it possible to create unity across of faiths, beliefs, ideologies. And that's where I'm really excited about the fifth fire as being not linked to any other ideology other than care for the earth, care for the mother. Uh, and that I believe can create the depth and the connection combined with this beautiful natural place, right? To me, it's clear that this is going to be a kind of a place of pilgrimage, a place where you go and maybe there's a program which you only do once in your life, and then there's the people who did it and the people who didn't do it, right? It's a place of transformation and spiritual growth and development, which then enables you to participate in this program or in that program, right? So I think, I guess what I'm saying is that, yeah, that's what I'm excited about, right? Because we need this focalizing. It's easy to say, love the earth. I love the earth. I go dig in my, I have 7,500 square meters, 2 acres. My God, it's too much for one person. I express my love for the earth for planting trees here, but that's my personal altar. Having this shared space where we can go and together in a beyond single ideology or faith come together in the belief that we need to care for the mother, I think is going to be incredibly powerful with the right storytelling and creating the right, bringing in the right people at the start and creating the right narrative and the right community around it.
Wow, you're onto something. Definitely, you're onto something. I've been struggling what the central common thread is, and it aligns with what the mammals told me, or the conclusion that we reached with them was the 2-day discussion last year, a 2-year dialogue about what our role as humans is on the planet. Now, there's different views on it, but nobody will disagree with the fact that we can do better at building reciprocity with, or operating under reciprocity principles, or being just conscious with what gives us life and give back abundantly to that. So that could be actually an interesting thread to be the unifying DNA. Yeah. The great harmonizer is the earth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing with
For us
this
humans.
very, very simple idea
Hang on a
of
second, I lost audio.
1 2 1 2.
Try
One,
that.
two, two.
Yeah, good. I'm back.
Yeah, so I'm playing with this tagline of one planet, one team. Fundamentally, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. We have one planet, the air is shared, the water is shared, it all circulates. You can't separate yourself. So we have to learn
Yeah.
how to function as one team. Everything else is details.
Let me get the notebook. I want to write this down. Hang on. One Earth, one team.
I said one planet, one team, but
One planet.
let's not fuck it up. Uh, so
One planet, one team. The other one is there's a tagline of a company from a friend of mine that I love it. It's like it says "Together to get there," and it reads. I mean, the logo is arranged very nicely. Together to get there. So it's almost like the same letters.
beautiful. So yeah, I mean, I think this place is special, and I think working with that to create being there as being special and educating a cohort of investors, leaders who are united in this shared belief uh, of the need of one planet, one team. And with investors, right? Investors are still humans, at least when you're talking to people, not algorithms. They invest in stories, narratives of value, right? And I think the key thing that we need to do is to extend the narrative of value beyond just numbers in a bank account, right?
Okay. What's your relationship to investors? I mean, how have you raised funds in the past, or like, or you have?
Not really, kind of mostly theoretical. I would say for me, the most eye-opening experience, I'm just starting on going on the journey properly. The most eye-opening experience I had was going to the Systemic Investment Summit in London this February. I think there were, I'm just pulling a number out of my behind, but I think there are like 2 trillion assets under management represented in this summit. So real serious money. For example, there was the Walton Foundation, the Waltons supermarket, and their project was the Colorado River Basin. I looked it up, it's like 2,000 square miles or something. And at this level, they're completely thinking systematically philanthropy, for profit, not for profit, how to orchestrate tens of billions in many different forms to have an impact at rivershed scale, right? So those are our people, the people talking impact, systemic investment, and there's levels of greenwashing in all of this, but anybody that's talking about it, that's a beginning of the conversation, and we can pull them in step by step on a journey of reconnection. Get the souls and the money will follow.
Yeah.
And
But we have to have the magnet. I mean, the thing is that the only thing we can do right now is the articulation of the vision, and then build the structure and have some traction. Because the idea is very difficult to attract any investor's attention or philanthropic capital or anything that relates money. Well, there's something like really well thought out, structured, and proven. So there's visionary capital, but it's very difficult to get. Very difficult to get. You almost have to have a. Here's what I've been struggling personally. Is like, and I don't know if this is a mental block or a reflection of experience. We had to somehow bootstrap this to the point that is sellable. That's what I've been doing with the Fifth Fire. I mean, little by little, I mean, the members of the council are donating their time to do this. They believe it's important, And I know that we had to craft a story that is appealing. Regarding venture, I know one guy in particular that could be very interested. And I spoke with him already about the Sacred Leadership Program, because it's within his intentions to build a training company, part of a venture studio. And he's raising like $120 million, and he's gonna get it 100% because he's the sixth fund he's raising for. So he has been successful with 5 different funds already in the pocket. So investors, I mean, he's the kind of guy that like, okay, what are you coming up with next? Okay, here's a check. He's writing a check.
Yeah,
He
I mean,
knows.
it's just need to at the start, just need to get one or two of people like this. I'm sorry, unfortunately, we're running out of time because we're at the top of the hour and I do have another meeting to go to. I can be like 5 minutes late or something. But
Yeah.
I think there is, so, I mean, here with the fifth fire, need to look at it not as first and foremost, not as a business project, but as a spiritual project. Because then you're reaching for a completely different pocket, people's completely different pocket. And it creates a completely different framing. And I'm not saying this around the ventures, but building the center as a whole, right? I think shit, I'm so bad with names. What's the big center in India that was built in the 70s?
I don't know. Okay, that's a very good point. Man, that is interesting. You have given me a lot of food for thought. I think,
I'm excited about that.
yeah.
I really do think, yeah, I mean, what you need to do, right? Your role is to bring the right people to the place and let the place do its work. Because if it is a sacred, special site, if you bring them there in the right context, in the right way, the earth will speak to them. And I think if you start looking at it through this lens, rather than me, Eduardo, I have to come and bring and squeeze 20 million or 4 million out of the world. No, you are a acolyte. You bring the
Yes.
people to the place and the place will speak to them. And if it doesn't, it's not the right place. Or maybe we didn't do it right way. So that's the first step, to really start finding and there is, you start with the people that have a high openness, that are really willing. And then there is no short, we just need to find them, right? But there is no shortage of people in the world who have money, but no meaning and no purpose.